In 2020, Lily Nova took up a new hobby of astrophotography and soon found evidence of UFOs in the many photos and videos she was taken. She noticed that some of the UFOs responded to her mental suggestions. Lily has been communicating with a number of extraterrestrials traveling in UFOs using this time-lapse photography. She recently traveled to Egypt and had some very interesting experiences and downloads about what Egypt's history was really like, and she also has some updates about what we can expect in the near future in the United States and our planet.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, Lily, to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's so great to be back on here with you.
Yes, well, I'm very glad to hear that you traveled to Egypt recently and had some really fascinating experiences there. That definitely is a wonderful place to go and connect with.
Yeah, and the timing of it was very, very interesting because the day that I got over there was when those scans were released in that press conference, or that conference, and that information was released about those structures being underneath the Great Pyramid. So that happened. It was divine timing. So I got to really tune in on site at all of these places and kind of get a feel for what was going on there.
Well, that's true. Yes, that was made worldwide news. The discovery of some ancient structures, massive ancient structures under the Giza Plateau, and suggesting that there is so much more underground than what you see on the surface when it comes to Egypt. So I do look forward to talking to you about that. But first, I wanted to get you to respond to something that essentially someone put out a critique trying to expose the grey hybrid alien agenda and put you in there as someone that supported the grey hybrid agenda. And I wrote an article in response where you had emailed me some of your responses, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to some of these claims made against you, because some of them are just outright false. And I just wanted to hear from you, or my audience would benefit from hearing from you about these accusations. So the first accusation made against you is that you have said that you are a grey alien hybrid.
Yeah, so I don't even know where that came from because I've never said that once in my life. So that was a real big shock to me as well. I think maybe something got miscommunicated or something, or somebody's definitely mistaken with that, because I've never said that and I've never claimed to be that either.
Okay, now as far as hybrids are concerned, what about being an Andromedan or Pleiadian hybrid?
Yeah. So, well, for me personally, I do feel, and I feel it's common in a lot of contactees families that it kind of runs through their bloodline or their family line, where they're like, my mother has had UFO experiences. Unfortunately, my father passed before I was able to really ask him about these sorts of things. I know he's had at least one experience, but I feel that there are galactics who are already running these kind of genetic programs and helping amplify starseed DNA, like Pleiadians and other types of beings. I think that's already just a commonplace thing. But I've never claimed that or never have spoken out about myself being a hybrid. I do feel that that is definitely occurring, though, with a variety of different races. But the specific video that was put in this article was taken from a clip where it said that it was me speaking about being in the gray hybrid program, which was false. The clip was actually taken from a video that I did where I shared some very deeply personal experiences that I had for a brief window of being part of a hybrid program. And it was specifically, I know one Pleiadian. I got to see this child, this baby, and it was in the male and the female Pleiadian, and this was just kind of a short line of communication. This isn't an overall theme. These experiences happened a few years ago, and around that same time period, I had a few experiences where I was contacted by the Andromedans, Andromedan constellation. One of my main contacts, Talia, who I spoke about in our last interview and share extensively about in my book. From my understanding, I was part of a hybrid program for three different children, if I remember correctly from this specific one. And they told me it was a mix of Andromedan and human DNA, my human DNA. And it was actually my father reincarnated as my hybrid child, which might sound pretty, that might sound a little bit out there, but it was a very deeply personal experience for me. And yeah, just a very interesting experience. But what they explained to me was that his name was Jacob's Ladder, is what they said. And I don't know, I'm not like a biblical person. And I looked that up, and Jacob's Ladder is basically leading heaven up to earth. So they shared with me that this being would play a role in helping introduce humanity to the galactics, to help us introduce into the community, is essentially what they said, to help bridge humanity and the stars. And this isn't a part of my main mission. I don't talk about this often. This is just a few instances that I had a few years ago, and I don't think I'm active in that program anymore. I think it was something that just happened over the course of a few months, and it's never been brought up again. So I don't promote the hybrid program. I have weird feelings about it myself, actually. It's kind of a weird, touchy subject. But the intention of these beings and from my Andromedan star family was to help bridge. I think for humanity, as we are ready and our consciousness raises up to a certain level, we'll want to interact with more human-looking species. I think that was part of the role there. But the article said that I was promoting the gray hybrid program, which I was not at all. And again, just to say that again, I do not promote the hybrid program. I kind of have weird feelings about that. That's not my main mission. I rarely talk about it. I just talked about it for that brief, short period in case others have had experiences like that, because a lot of people have had experiences with that. So I was just sharing something deeply personal that happened for a short period of time a few years ago.
Okay. And so, but there is some connection you have with an Andromedan and Pleiadian hybrid program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you kind of like explained a little bit about that. And gray hybrid children, have you had any gray hybrid children?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. That's important. I think that was one of the accusations made. So also it was claimed that you were saying, and certainly there was a video showing you talking about the possibility of greys being us from the future. And I think you explained that, early on you really weren't familiar with the greys and all of that, but now you're a bit clearer. So yeah, what do you think of that idea that the grey extraterrestrials are us from the future?
Yeah. So I think it can be very convoluted, and we're dealing with timeline wars and different timelines and all of these different species coming from the future and different timelines. So, I think that could, and there's also tons of different species of grays as well. It's not kind of like lumped into one category, and even other species that look similar to gray, but they are not gray. So I was asked that question again a few years ago. I was not very familiar with the Greys. I don't have contact with the Greys. My contacts are Andromedan and Pleiadian and Arcturian mostly, and the Alliance and the inner Earth beings. Those are kind of my main people that I talk to. So I was asked that just briefly in an interview because it's kind of a hot topic. A lot of people want the grays are what's shoved in front of everybody's faces all of the time. If you don't know anything about UFO disclosure or extraterrestrials, the grays exist because that narrative has been kind of pushed uh, out in the open. So a lot of people ask about that naturally. And yeah, I said, they asked me if they were us from the future, and I said that could be a potential. And that's simply what I said. I didn't go on and on about it. It wasn't it's not my mission. I'm not promoting it. I just said that definitely I could see that being a
Right.
potential.
Yeah, that's just a claim, and so you're not particularly attached to that, and don't talk about that in any great length. One of the videos kind of like was kind of like, in a way, it was trying to make out that you were promoting the Greys coming back and assimilating humanity, but in fact, as you explained, that you were actually talking about your father being reincarnated as your hybrid child, and him coming back with other, I assume, Andromedan human hybrids to help assimilate humanity to the greater galactic community. But your words, assimilating humanity to the greater galactic community, that was cut off. Or no, not cut off, but just ignored, and it made it look as though you were advocating grey hybrids coming back and assimilating humanity, when in fact you were saying uh, these Andromedan Pleiadian hybrids coming back and helping assimilate humanity to the greater galactic community.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The clip was just taken out of context, and that's really, really key there. You can cut up little tiny clips of somebody and make it look like they're saying something completely different. So that was the case with that. And I don't even think I never used the word assimilate. Just that they would help kind of be a bridge, and to help humans be maybe more comfortable and work with us humans as we become a spacefaring species.
Mhm. And and the final claim I just wanted to get you to respond to was, a claim was made that you are a fairy, and that was kind of used to say that, well, you can't be both a fairy and a star seed because they're incompatible in terms of lineage. So is that accurate? Did you at any point say that you are a fairy, or have kind of evolved through the fairy kingdom?
Uh, yeah, that's interesting. So that must have come from an interview I think I did on my channel where my guest was speaking extensively about fairies and the elemental kingdom. Um, and I do feel a connection with the fairies. I've had interactions with the fairies. So yeah, I do feel a connection. I don't have like extensive past life memories, and I don't like of being a fairy, and I don't really talk about that or promote that. But I feel that we've incarnated as many different types of dimensional beings, and I think it's definitely possible, and it's come up in readings that I've done for people too, that you could have been a starseed in one incarnation and have been like an elemental or from the elemental kingdom in another incarnation. I think it's we're very multidimensional beings. So I think that's possible, and I don't think we should like shut that out. But again, I don't like really like walk around claiming I'm a fairy. I'm kind
Okay,
of
all right.
bubbly and small like one, but I don't, just kind of run with that.
Good. Okay. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to
Thank
that.
you.
So, in terms of some of the galactic organizations out there, the two that people have talked about are the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and also the Galactic Federation of Light, or the Confederation of Planets. What do you know of those organizations, and if you had any connection to those at all?
Yeah. So the Federation of Worlds I speak to, but I mostly speak to the Alliance. And I think there could be a Federation of Light, and maybe it's just hearsay in different words, different terms and different words. I think we just kind of need to be careful. I think there's kind of been a psychological operation or a psyop going on about that to confuse people on purpose. So I don't want to get like too wrapped into that or feed that. But yeah, I speak to the Federation of Worlds and the Alliance. And part of them being Pleiadians, Talia, the Andromedans, and Andromeda Council. I kind of speak to a group, and they all seem to be working together for the ascension and betterment of the planet, as well as inner Earth beings who are working with the Alliance and even Solar Warden.
Mhm. Have you come across the Confederation of Planets at all? Because I know that's something I have done a bit of research on and spoken to a few contactees who work with the Confederation of Planets that have a very different orientation or ethical approach than the Federation of Worlds.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I actually recently I've heard Confederation come up telepathically. Like sometimes they'll kind of introduce themselves when a new group is introducing themselves, or I'm picking up on something. I've heard that title coming up a few times just recently, but I can't say that I've specifically had open contact with them quite yet, so I can't really comment on that. But I have heard, and it does feel like potentially there's a difference there, but I don't know too much about that yet.
Okay, all right. Well, recently you just got back from Egypt and you had some really remarkable experiences there, and I think you have some pictures as well of what you saw or what you got downloads about. So yeah, why don't you kind of like tell us about your Egypt trip and what you experienced?
Yeah, so Egypt was it was incredible. Man, where do we even begin? The sites are so energetically charged, and there's just it's different from seeing it online or in pictures and then actually being there and being immersed in the energy in these giant structures that do not look like they were, normal man-made. Like the precision of the hieroglyphs and just the structures in general. It's absolutely incredible. So I did a good tour and toured a lot of different locations, and I can share some photos and kind of share some of the information that I got whenever I went to some of these sites. So having contact has really opened up my it allows me to see through into kind of other realms. So I've been able to see some like cloaked ships and other things like that. And I think it's also frequency specific too. Whenever you can kind of tap into these things as you raise your frequency in these energetically charged places, you're more easily able to see through the veil. But I can show you some images of that if you would like.
Please.
Okay. And I want to add something first that was very interesting that your audience might also find interesting. So I was at this hotel, right? This specific hotel. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was in Cairo, and it was a palace, an old palace, and then there was a hotel on the side. And like I said, basically the day that we got there is whenever that information came out and went viral about the structures underneath the pyramids. And it was also Ramadan, so it was like parties all day. Our guide told us this is the elite area of Cairo. And we were seeing elites, like they were meeting at this hotel, at this palace, this old palace. These from different countries, they were having like a huge meeting in the palace, and I just found it really interesting that we got to kind of mingle around that, and it felt like the information that was coming up. This is me kind of speculation or my opinion or perception. You didn't hear about those scans and what's going on underneath the pyramid in Egypt. You heard it everywhere else. It felt very hush hush there. Not with everybody, but I feel there were some important meetings taking place at that hotel and in that area regarding the information that was coming out, is what I'm trying to say. And I tuned into it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have a photo of this. So I tuned in, like, what's going on? Because we're seeing all of these elites, leaders from different countries at this hotel, and it just felt like very kind of hush hush important business, meetings or political meetings, which I found interesting, just in the right place at the right time. So I tuned in and I heard there's a jump room in this hotel. And I asked, I said, where does it lead? I saw Mars. I'm sure it leads other places too, but I saw Mars being on that. And then I asked, where is it? And I heard very clearly the 3rd floor. The next day, we were staying in the hotel portion, which was off to the side. The next day, a couple people that I were with, they went and they wanted to go snoop around the other part of the palace area because it was just a very interesting, very old place, and it just felt like they were hiding some things there. So they went kind of snooping around, and in the palace, they were freaking out because in the elevator there is no 3rd floor. Completely off of it. So, you hear about that. There's a hidden room where there are things, maybe hidden things or hidden meetings taking place. So I just thought that was interesting, and you might have thought that was interesting. That's where we stayed the first few days.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
The name of the hotel?
I might have to, if we can kind of cut and pause this, I can look it up real fast.
Oh, that's okay. It's all right. Just you can continue on.
Okay. I can give it to you afterwards. It's some sort of a palace. I'll have to look through my messages with them. Okay, so just to show you some pictures and kind of go through some of the information I was getting while I was in Egypt. Here's the Sphinx and the pyramids behind me. And this is mixed with some psychic information as well as some kind of messages from the Alliance. But this portion is psychic information. But I went there and I did see a very large cloaked ship hovering over the pyramids whenever we first got there. And then I saw this huge golden orb above it. And I've seen this over another sacred site before. Cahokia Mounds, actually, in near St. Louis, Missouri.
So is this an actual photo you took?
So these are photos I took, and then I created a rendition of what I saw.
Okay, so you saw that psychically.
Yes, hovering over the Sphinx. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I was told that it was a time capsule and it was a bridge. It was kind of a bridge point to help us ascend to the next level and into a higher reality, essentially. But I thought that was interesting. They used the words time capsule and a bridge. And I've seen this large golden, it almost felt like maybe a ship for a moment. But they called it a time capsule. Maybe it's a ship also that's kind of hidden within this huge golden orb. And I've seen it above Monk's Mound and Cahokia Mounds also, which is in Illinois, on the border of Illinois and St. Louis, Missouri, and is actually the main mound there is larger than the base of the Great Pyramid. It's a very hush-hush place. Ancient Aliens hasn't been allowed to film there. Graham Hancock has not been allowed to film there. They don't let people come in. So it's kind of a hidden gem, Cahokia Mounds is. I think it's a very, very important site, and I've seen that over that site as well. And they showed me that they are connected. These sites are connected. And the work that I was doing whenever I lived in that area was actually in the work that we're all doing collectively, but especially whenever we go to these sacred sites, was helping to kind of reactivate this grid and these nodal points, if you will. So I just thought that was interesting. Something else, this is just a spiritual thing that happened to me that you guys might find interesting, but in the Great Pyramid, in the King's Chamber, so you go in right there, I had an experience where I was visited by a seraphim who looked like this, a very high dimensional angelic being, and they gave me a box of memories. They said that they were giving me a box of memories and that I would open that and would remember certain things, I think, from past lifetimes. Potentially, I have a feeling it has to do with Egypt, with Atlantis, with other kind of things as I was ready. But I was given a box of memories by a seraphim in the Great Pyramid. So that was pretty interesting. Tuning into it on site, so sort of remote viewing it, if you will. I also saw what they called a time capsule under the Great Pyramid. It looked like a chamber with looked about 5 pods. It almost reminded me of Prometheus, the movie. It looked like about 5 pods with sleeping giants inside. Now, I'd love to learn more on that. I'm starting to get more of this sort of information, and the Alliance has been sharing with me and stressing with me lately that these discoveries are going to be coming to the surface. Giants that have been hidden, giant bones, all these different things, different artifacts, are going to be coming to the surface as humanity is ready, as our consciousness level hits a certain point. And that's going to be a really big part of how it's going to throw away the whole old narrative, all of our history books. It's going to change everything. So it's going to be a very key part in the awakening. So I thought that was interesting, seeing these giants, that's starting to come up more. Do you have any comments or questions on that so far?
Well, yeah, just these giants, were they kind of all human looking, or were they hybrid beings?
I heard that they were Anunnaki kings. They could have been hybrids. I definitely, in some of my other, they could have been Anunnaki hybrids for sure. In some of my other downloads that I received while I was there, because sometimes whenever you're walking through this space, through those temples, you get a feeling like I've been here before, or you get kind of a download because there's information encoded in the stone. There's ancient information. It carries that energy. I've seen some of these giant beings walking through some of these places, and what I got was that they were Anunnaki hybrids.
Interesting. Did in terms of I guess the chimera. Well, if chimera is the right word, but I mean, beings like Thoth or Horus. I mean, they're sometimes depicted as humans, sometimes depicted as kind of like a humanoid bird. So, I'm just wondering, in terms of what you were seeing, what you were tuning into, were any of those beings kind of like half, or did they have like bird heads or snake heads? And
Yeah, I definitely did see that. I feel these beings that are depicted in ancient Egypt were real or based off of real beings, definitely. What came through a lot were the Lyrans, and there was some reptilian stuff that came up as well, and it seemed to be in some of the hieroglyphs and stories, because they're like stories on these walls, and a lot of them also look like maps showing you the ascension process, showing you how to access your inner wisdom or work through the crown chakra and all of that. Uh, some of these murals I found, it was kind of depicting. I don't think I have the picture with me to show you right now, but I can send it to you after if you'd like. But there was a lion like fighting and an alligator like biting it. And it really felt like it was, and it was at the temple of,
Met?
no, the temple, the alligator one.
Uh, was that
I can't remember his name.
Sobes?
Yeah, Sobek. Sobek.
Sobek, yes.
Yeah, it was an alligator like biting and fighting with this feline being. And I had never seen that before. I thought it was super fascinating. I feel like it was depicting this kind of tug of war, this war that was happening between the Lyrans and reptilians, and depicting some of that. The Lyrans came through very heavily. The feline beings saw them everywhere. In the on the walls, but also through psychic vision, through contact, through telepathy, through meditation. I was seeing them a lot, and I was kind of got a chance to remote view while I was at some of these locations, just tune in what was going on here beforehand, and I'd see feline beings walking around. I can share through I think I've only gotten one like past life regression done before a long time ago. Part of what came through on that was a feline lifetime that I had, but it also came up separately. So I wouldn't just take that. I also had other separate occasions that corroborated with that and information that came through. But me in a past incarnation being a 13-foot tall feline being in ancient Egypt, but I was here whenever there were humans there as well, and I was kind of helping teach and guide humanity. But I was 13 feet tall, feline being, and I died in that lifetime from what I remember being an airstrike from negative reptilians. I don't know the time period of this, but it felt like a very long time ago. And And I keep sensing and seeing kind of this like black goo or black technology weaponry that was used, and I died in that lifetime.
So that's interesting. So you tuned into a past life that corresponded with what you saw at the Temple of Sobek in terms of this fight or struggle between reptilian crocodile beings and these lions or the feline beings, and that you were one of those. And
Yes.
these feline beings were 13 foot tall. Uh, so I guess
Very
at
tall. Yeah.
that time, the Egyptians, the human Egyptians, were very used to interacting with these extraterrestrials that they obviously regarded as gods.
hmm Right. Yeah. And so I got to kind of see that and really and feel that, wow, they were really here. They were here. And some of us, it surprised me to find I had a past lifetime being one of those beings on Earth. I think I've been working towards this and involved in this for a very long time. Um, Something else that kind of that corroborates with that was specifically at Karnak. Have you been to Karnak?
I have, yes.
So have you seen Sekhmet at Karnak, the Sekhmet?
Yes, yes, we did. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful entity.
Oh my goodness. So I was just seeing her everywhere, feeling her energy everywhere. Like the Lyrans took over the show in Egypt for me. I wasn't expecting that, but that was very much what was coming through. Plus some of the kind of like the Anunnaki and hidden history aspect and in technology, dormant, some of this dormant time capsule stuff that's kind of hidden in time capsules. Um, yeah, the Temple of Karnak's very interesting. Well, it's a huge, massive place, and that was one of the other places where I was seeing these feline beings walking around. And Tyler from Journey to Truth podcast, I think you are aware of him. He was on the trip too that I went on, and he had an experience there, and he saw that as a that specific area, Karnak, as a Lyran sanctuary. Um, During like a Draco Lyran war or feud. So I thought that
Interesting.
was yeah, and afterwards I saw yeah, I would see these feline beings just walking around that area, and it's like I was tapping into a parallel timeline, but they were just like still kind of walking around in that area and present.
Well, I've heard of the kind of like feline presence there in Egypt. The Anunnaki presence. I mean, that's interesting. You were tuning in and finding that the Anunnaki were also present there in Egypt. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's been something that's been coming up more for me. Let me see if I have okay, I don't think I have any more pictures on that there. Maybe it was here. Um yeah, the Anunnaki was coming up quite a lot. And there's positive and there's negative with it, so we have to be very very careful I think surrounding that. There's been a lot of I don't think we have the full picture quite yet, honestly. I think there's more that's coming to the surface on it. And one of the things was that they built these places or Anunnaki hybrids. I think a lot of the maybe pharaohs or other types of beings could have been hybrids, and then some of these giants that I was seeing. I went to a huge mosque, and this is whenever I had a negative experience there because it felt very the the frequency there was just very tight and controlled. It was and while I was there, I saw that's where I saw a giant walking around. And this place again is huge. All of these places are massive. I saw a giant walking around, Anunnaki hybrid of some sort. And then I was getting information about how they created the religion as a control mechanism. Yeah, that might trigger some people, but that's what I was getting, that those specific beings created religion to kind of to control and keep humanity in kind of like a worship gene status, instead of going within and seeking higher truth within themselves, kind of relying on this outside source and just keeping it very controlled is some of the information I got there. Um, that was in Cairo, I think.
Mm. Did you travel to I think it's the Serapeum where they had the huge sarcophagi made of stone? Did you see that? Did you get a kind of like a read on who it was that was in these giant sarcophagi there at the Serapeum?
Yeah, so I'm getting that they were like portals, and I'm hearing time travel right now. That those different areas or sarcophagi were used as portals. Is what I'm getting now. So, yes, I did go there, and that was mind-blowing, and they only dug up probably 1 to 5% of what's going on under there, so who knows what else, and these things are massive again, like, they are fit for a giant, literally.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. The conventional explanation is that they were built for the Apis bull, as I recall, that the Egyptians worshipped the Apis bull. But of course, I think that story is a lot of bull.
Yeah.
That in fact it was some entity that was using the portal or the when I was there and saw that, the information we got was that the feline beings were using those
Oh,
or
wow.
communicating with their home world.
Wow. Well, that could definitely I could definitely see that, and maybe they have multiple uses as well. You can experience you can travel with your consciousness, uh, even through somebody that I was with in the Great Pyramid. They were able to get in the king's tomb, whatever, in the king's chamber, and they were thrown into, like, an astral projection type experience. But then they were pulled back in because somebody started, talking and something else happened that kinda pulled them back in very quickly, but I thought that was interesting. So it's like that, I feel it could be definitely used for different things. It could be a portal, also be used to communicate and make contact. I could definitely see that.
Yes, the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid. I mean, that's a kind of fascinating place. I mean, I did get to go inside it and just spent, I think, a couple of minutes in it. But it definitely was something that would magnify the energies, that
Right.
all the energies were just really magnified by that. So I can well see how that was used as a place for people to meditate, to be initiated, to achieve higher states of consciousness, and so forth.
Right, that's definitely what it felt like, an initiation, and that's actually the word I remember hearing that whenever I was in the Great Pyramid. Um, an initiation, this is an initiation, and that's where I had the experience with the seraphim, uh, being that gave me a box of memories that I would be able to open and draw information from as I'm ready. But,
Yeah,
yeah.
you want to explain that? I mean, because that has similarities to what I remember hearing Alex Collier describing, that he would be given these holographic memories by the Andromedans, that when the time was right, that those memories would just present themselves, but that they were kind of like holograms where, they would just had so much packed in there, but until it was the time, you just wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, and that's awesome to hear. I did not know that about Alex's testimony. That's fantastic. I feel that definitely corroborates with what I'm experiencing. I was actually told for months about this box. They're just calling it. I kind of just see it as like a box of memories. So it could be like a holographic thing. Um, Could also be a crystalline thing because crystals have so much information. That's me speculating, not saying that that's what it is. Um, but yeah, I was actually told about this for months and months prior to going to Egypt that I was going to be receiving this box, um, and receiving these memories, and it would, I think it's all in divine timing. But yeah, I've maybe I've started to crack it open. I get kind of like glimpses of it, and then maybe one day it'll just be a huge waterfall and just all come through. I was like, well, when are these going to come through? And they said, well, I'm hearing now they're already starting to with some of the information I've been able to pick up on some of these sites. But also they said, you need to sit down and be still. You need to integrate because I've been traveling a lot. But yeah, that's fantastic. That's my experience as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of it. But I think it's going to be a very huge breakthrough, and I'll probably be able to share a lot of really cool insight from it.
Great. Okay. Well, before we move on from Egypt to more kind of contemporary events, any final slide or experience you want to share?
Yeah. So there was something interesting at Abu Simbel. Did you end up going there?
No, I don't believe I did.
Okay, I can send this clip as well. But Abu Simbel, that wasn't originally on the itinerary, but we were going to be kind of close there. So we went, and they show you the reconstruction of this, or the construction of it, because they built a dam and flooded the whole area. The original site is underwater. And whenever I went in, I was like, this looks fake. This looks like plaster. It was not the precision cut. It just didn't feel like authentic. There was still energy there, but and then they literally show you like a documentary about how they built it. They don't show you them bringing it up. They just show you building it. And they use that for a Hollywood movie, at least one Hollywood movie. So it's technically like a set. So I thought that was interesting, kind of uncovering a little bit of the maybe a bit of corruption with that. It's a tourist attraction. The real deal is under the water. And I went over to the water and kind of tuned in and meditated, and I felt a stargate underneath that in the original area. And it was really interesting because I felt it open and like kind of turn on, and a fragment of my Lyran, I guess, soul memory came through it. I saw it very vividly. It was a very vivid experience from the cosmos. It was like a soul fragment. And I've noticed since then, as I'm integrating that soul wisdom and that soul light and information, it's still pretty fresh, but I feel myself kind of drawing on things that I didn't know that I knew before as it's integrating. So yeah, hidden stargate under the water there. Did they move this to kind of disable that, to hide that? Because they built the dam there and they flooded it. Was that on purpose? That's just me speculating, but I thought that was interesting.
Well, that's kind of like fits a pattern of how the Illuminati, how they cover things up. That I don't think it would be at all far-fetched to think that they would flood an area just to hide something like that, because they want to keep all of that from the rest of humanity, because they have their agenda, and part of their agenda is to not allow all of these advanced technologies to be discovered and shared with with all of humanity.
Right. Yeah, so I feel there's something very, very important there, in a Stargate specifically, that's hiding under the water there. And they've like covered it up with clay or whatever to kind of hide that. And you're not allowed, like, you can't dive there. It's very, very tightly controlled. It's a police state over there. You guys might find this interesting as well. In Luxor, I was getting some information from the Alliance, from Kay specifically, which is a contact that I've had for a few years now. So I was getting that there's a whole underground city with massive ruins underneath this whole, and they've only, like I said, they've only dug up about 1 to 5%. Some of these whole cities, they just found, and then as early or as late as the 1960s. Like, they're continuously finding, there's layers of things built on top and hidden. So I saw massive ruins underneath Luxor specifically, kept safely in a time capsule. There's things hidden there, she told me. Kept safely in a time capsule with artifacts, lost wisdom, to be found when humanity is ready. We have the genetic signature to unlock and activate. something important here that will help bring in the next phase of the awakening for humanity. So I think as you may feel drawn to a location for a reason. Maybe your specific frequency or your energy triggers something to activate. If that makes sense. They talk, some people have talked about these spaceships or hidden technology starting to activate as the consciousness and frequency of the planet starts to hit a certain stage. Things that have been hidden since maybe before the fall of Atlantis, for example. And as we become ready, these things will start to come to the surface and tell us our true history.
Yeah, that's a very important thing to keep in mind when it comes to disclosure, because I know there's a lot of people that think disclosure is all about forcing the governments and the elites to kind of like release all these secrets that are being kept from us, and they're bad guys for doing that, and the world would be so much better. But I think a lot of people don't realize that our mass consciousness is really behind when things surface or not, and that so therefore we play a direct role in terms of our own consciousness, how we live, and if most of humanity is not ready for this stuff, then it will never be revealed, no matter how hard you push disclosure. But if we are ready for it, then it will come out, no matter how hard the elites try and keep it all secret.
Right. Oh, for sure. And I mean, we're getting glimpses of it everywhere. You just have to pay attention. But it really is within. And I saw this whole kind of the ascension mechanics, maybe, of how this whole thing works, where we are in space, the sun, because that directly affects our ascension as well, where our consciousness is, how open are our hearts, how activated are our third eyes, how high is our frequency. That creates a whole domino effect, but it starts within and then it reflects out. They showed me a very deep visual of that to really help me to understand within reflects out. And also a lot of these things are, I think, event based. Once this happens, once this domino falls, then this can happen over here. Once this is revealed, then this can be revealed. It's kind of an order of operations that has to take place.
Okay. Right. Well, yeah, maybe now if we can spend a little bit of time looking at what's coming and
Sure
uh,
thing.
on the planet. I mean, there's been a lot of kind of rumors about what's happening in the United States. So there's a lot of people that are talking about mass arrests of the deep state, that
Mhm.
the Earth Alliance is secretly moving to arrest all these deep state figures, drug lords and gang leaders and so forth, and shipping them off to Guantanamo or to
Mhm.
supermax prisons in El Salvador. What do you know of any of that?
I think there is some of that occurring. What I've been and a lot of this has to kind of play out behind the scenes and then play out a certain way in the public eye, unfortunately. Um, but what I've been seeing specifically over the last week is more information. I'm hearing hybrid program right now. More information coming up on the hybrid program, like humans doing genetic experiments in underground facilities. That's what I'm seeing the Alliance going after right now in these trafficking rings. Very, very, like I actually woke up the other day, which I'll be making a video post about this as I collect more information, but explosions, some of these underground facilities with stolen technology, they were saying, literally being destroyed, some of them being destroyed. I wonder if we'll be able to kind of sense like maybe any like earthquakes or hear anything from some of that. I'm not sure. But specifically trafficking, I'm seeing a lot with the trafficking. So, and you've got the whole situation with Diddy and I haven't been able to follow that as too much right now, but there's a huge court case going on that, and more names are being dropped on that. So I find it's the timing with that. But yeah, disclosed locations is what I was getting. They are getting these locations out of people right now to go in and destroy some of these facilities and gather the evidence, is what I've been picking up on, specifically on the trafficking, cloning, and hybridization experiments. It's what I've really been picking up on this last week. And it's interesting because I'm actually starting to see other people independently talking about these things. Like the experimentation, hybridization. It could be like human with insect DNA or wolf DNA or whatever, them creating super soldiers. There was even something that came out just the other day about China using, I can't remember what sort of like an insect or a bacteria or something, splicing that with human DNA with the intention to create super soldiers. So are you starting to see some of that information starting to actually roll out? It's like kind of quietly rolling out, but that's a huge sign for me that there's a big disclosure that's about to come of that, and the work behind the scenes is being done right now to really, really clear that out and expose it and grab whatever evidence needs to be grabbed so that it can come down. Because the trafficking is really the heart of it all.
Okay, so that they are creating chimera, that they want super soldiers, and that a lot of countries are doing that.
Yeah.
And so you've been tuning into that. Maybe explain for my audience exactly how you tune in to get your information. Just remind people.
Yeah, certainly. So, like I said, I have a few kind of main contacts, the Alliance being kind of my main contact, and they kind of give me like these little intel drops. Sometimes whenever I wake up in the morning, I'll hear this, I'll get an update, or just while I'm walking around, I'll get an update. Like I'll hear it telepathically. And sometimes it'll come with whole kind of packets of information and visuals and things like that. And sometimes it can come through dreams, but often it's, I'm just sitting here and then I start getting all this information and I write it down through telepathy. And also on site on these locations, I mean, I'm a boots on the ground type person. I like going to visit these sites, and you can pick up on a lot whenever you're in the area. Some of this trafficking stuff, I just got back from St. Louis, which is where I used to live, and I was getting specific locations there, specifically the stadium. There being an elite trafficking ring underneath that. So I'm hoping I was picking up on it. I was being told about it. I was being shown it for a reason. So hopefully something's being done about that. I know something's being done about it, at least from the back end, hopefully publicly when the time's right as well. But yeah, basically through telepathy, short answer.
It's very interesting. I kind of resonate with that because I know when I got involved in the whole exopolitics issue, I was actually a professor at American University in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And energetically, as I was beginning to explore the whole exopolitics genre, I was living in the heart of the beast. This Washington, D.C. was where everything was being run. So you can't. So actually being at the location of where a lot of these things are happening, energetically you are tapping into that, even though consciously, I mean, I had nothing to do with the unacknowledged special access programs that were being run out of Washington, D.C. But because I was there, I was able to get an intuitive hit that, okay, this was real. This is really happening, that they have these programs involving extraterrestrials that are being run out of this place. And I was in Washington, D.C. I lived there for 8 years. And I think, looking back now, I think that was actually the perfect place for me to be, to start developing this interest and to establish my research into exopolitics. So it sounds like you do something very similar in going to the different places where there are these underground facilities, and you tune into that you're there physically and you're able to, I guess, symbiotically absorb what's going on.
Yeah, precisely. I'll get this information. I mean, it's in the field. It's in the quantum field. It's all around us, this information and the energy of it. We don't just have our 5 senses. We have, these other senses that we can tap into and get get that information, especially if you train yourself with doing it. Similar to like remote viewing too, sort of. There's something I wanted to add. Definitely the boots on the ground thing, because that's also just exciting to me. I like to explore. I want to see what's going on. I want to see it in person, and you really, that's where I feel you really are able to really tap in and get just get have mind blowing revelations and information about it. There was this other location around St. Louis. I showed you Rock City on our last interview. That was an interesting spot. And that was a government, partly government facility, whole underground area that we kind of snuck into. And I was sensing like kind of like a war and a lot of information that was kind of being kept and hidden there, even like blackmail purposes and all sorts of stuff. It was like the National Archives was going on underground. There was one other spot around St. Louis, around Weldon Springs, where I went. And I started... this might get kind of disturbing, but it's called the cell disposal site in Weldon Springs, and it's kind of like this nuclear spot where they just covered a bunch of rocks over nuclear waste, and it's right by a high school. Whenever I went there, I was getting hit with this information about them taking kids. I don't have proof over this, but this was what my experience. What I was seeing, taking kids from the school to a facility underground there. And apparently they take a lot of people on field trips there, and I think they were stealing and kidnapping these children. They could have been, who knows what they were doing exactly. But got a very dark feeling about it. But I wanted to learn more because I'm a curious mind. I want to see what's really going on here. And so I started going up there pretty frequently. And then one morning I woke up and they said, "Don't go there today." And I was like, "Okay." And then like the mound is actually like really good for jogging and exercise. So I was like, "But I really want to exercise." And I was like, "I think it'll be okay." And I kind of tuned into it, felt into it again. And I'm like, "It's okay." Next time I went, there was a black helicopter that showed up, circled around me. And I've got footage of this. It stopped and it circled around me, and the guy was looking at me. And I heard in my head, "You need to leave now." That was weird. I got that on film, and after that, I don't know if I should be saying this publicly, actually, but I was ill for about a week after that. So I think they shot something at me. But
Yeah, I know about that. They do have the ability to kind of shoot microbes or any kind of bacteria that they want in your vicinity, so you breathe it in and you get sick. And the weapons that they have now is kind of like far ahead of what what we know, that the CIA had a kind of like a heart attack gun back in the 1970s. Well, that's 50 years ago. They've developed a lot more since then, and they can actually shoot bacteria or some kind of disease in your vicinity so that it's airborne, and you breathe it in and then you get very sick.
yeah, and yeah, it was just also just energetically, I was not doing good for a week after that, and I was like, "Well, they told me that morning not to go," but then I was curious, and I went anyway, so I kind of learned my lesson on that. But I think also they wanted me to see, because then it became so much more real. This black helicopter came out of nowhere and circled around me. That was weird.
Hmm. Very interesting. So,
Side note.
mhm. So what do you think is coming? I know you get sometimes, you get these downloads, and they sometimes are telling you about events that are coming. So what do you think is coming? I mean, especially now with the Trump administration, people are trying to work out, whether this is going to lead to America liberating itself from the deep state, or will the deep state succeed in stifling the Trump agenda and the Trump administration like they did the first time?
Right. No, I think it had to play out this way. The first time it felt like, and I wasn't even awake to any of this. I didn't care about politics or anything. Now I've been paying attention, and more so, and I get information. I get intel drops about it. now. But I think that kind of had to happen that way. Trump went the first time, and then we had, the other party come in, and some of those faces come in, and then it just got really bad, and the corruption started being really exposed. So I don't know. I just think that it kind of had to happen that way for everything to start coming out to the surface. I think this administration is playing a really big role, and I'm not painting Trump as a savior or a messiah or anything like that. I just understand and I can see his role in exposing the corruption and just making changes. So I think we're heading in a very positive direction. I also still do feel very much a tug of war happening between factions, uh, between the deep state, but I've also seen kind of behind the scenes, like, negotiations taking place. Like, they know that this switch in power is inevitable. They're just going out kicking and screaming, is some of the information that I've been getting. And it's kind of been discussed how this will all unfold in the public eye, because it has to happen a certain way for the masses to wake up and actually see. Like, it has to affect you, or else you don't care about it. So I think that's what we're experiencing right now. And we've got a lot of disclosures coming forward, a lot of advancements. They really keep highlighting to me things like the Ark of the Covenant, and other kind of like lost artifacts and lost wisdom starting to come to the surface. These different ancient sacred sites that rewrite our history. That's a very important part of the whole disclosure. Like, it's multifaceted. It's happening on all different angles. It has to be like a holistic thing. So we've got movement happening all over the board in so many different directions, really. So we've got more of those new discoveries coming forward. I just saw something about the Grand Canyon and artifacts. Like, I think this was like new artifacts, something new being discovered that would completely rewrite our history. That's from before the Native Americans. That would prove Atlantis, and some of these more advanced civilizations.
Well, what did you hear about the Grand Canyon? Because one of the people I work with is JP, a former retired army serviceman now, and he traveled to the Grand Canyon, or went there on a mission, and he went inside one of the caverns and saw all this ancient Egyptian, all these artifacts, and he saw all these kind of like tombs and mummies, and he saw a flying saucer as well in that cavern system. So what are you referring to when you're saying things have happened in the Grand Canyon?
So actually, I was just referring to an article that was going around this morning. So I haven't really like tuned into the Grand Canyon specifically, but I feel all of what you just said super resonate. Like, I feel that's going to be a big part of it. The Egypt stuff, and that's come up with other sites. And I'd like to go to the Grand Canyon and see what I can pick up there too. Maybe I'll make a trip of that since I live so close. But Cahokia Mounds, even in near St. Louis, Missouri, I was shown, giant bones and things like that there, and ancient Egyptian like artifacts being found there whenever they do excavate, and that's in the middle of the country. So I believe, from what I'm getting, that will be found all over the place. So yeah, I agree. I agree with what JP said, and I'd be interested to actually tune into it more and see if I can get more information on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting how there's a section of the Grand Canyon that has all these Egyptian names that they've named that after the gods. So yeah, if you can go there and kind of like tune into what's there, but if they allow you, because I think they've cut off that area where JP says he was taken.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But still, there are people that are very good at getting into these places, and hopefully you get a chance to do that. One of the things that keeps on coming up again and again is this idea of a solar flash event or a micronova event. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so they actually told me, like, not too long ago. I heard the quote, "Evidence of the flash will be seen everywhere. Solar, mass awakening incoming." trials in trials. So I got this information, I think last week. I think that has to do with like judicial trials and things like that, people being tried, but also maybe trials and tribulations just within humanity ourselves. With the solar flash, so they were saying really big ones are coming, like solar flares and explosive progress in awakening. And just last week or during the Rebels of Disclosure conference I just spoke at, we had 2 major X-class solar flares that hit during that conference. That just shakes everything up. That shakes it's all connected, like I was saying. What happens internally, what happens with the sun, what happens in the public eye, it's literally all connected. So as the solar energy hits us and we're getting more of these solar flares, which I think the flash is like this. I don't think it's gonna be like one big flash that, does the job. I think we're in it right now, and there's probably there's a really big one and a series of really, really big ones coming. But I think we're already in the midst of it. But essentially, it's going to turn DNA online. It's going to wake people up, essentially, and help raise the frequency and consciousness of the planet very rapidly. And with that, darkness comes out because it doesn't have anywhere to hide. So that's some of the turbulence that we're seeing, and also masks coming off. People who maybe if they don't have good intentions, or they're hiding something, or even just negative players in the political arena, the public figures, their masks are starting to come off. They're starting to show their true colors. We're seeing that everywhere. So it's a process, but yeah, I've been getting information just recently that evidence of the flash will be seen everywhere. Like you'll just be able to witness it. All of these positive changes in revelations occurring, and another huge wave of awakening coming, they're saying, very soon.
So I think we're still in the solar maximum. So I imagine this is going to play out over the next few months.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it takes a little bit of time. It's a window, and it kind of goes like this. We'll be feeling it. We'll be feeling the symptoms of it, and enjoying the show here on Earth.
Right. So any other events that you know of that are coming, or that people need to kind of be aware of before we start wrapping things up?
Yeah. So let's see. Besides the solar energies, which has been a really, really important message that's been coming through recently, big upticks in that. And also, I just want to add real quick, NASA was warning of blackouts due to the powerful solar flare. Did you happen to see that?
I don't recall seeing that recently, no.
Yeah, there was like a warning. It was going around. NASA was saying it. Multiple popular media outlets were warning of potential blackouts because of powerful solar energies. And the Alliance has told me blackouts are inevitable. I think that is part of the process of maybe old systems being shut off, new systems coming online, and maybe transfers of things happening. So I just thought that was interesting. So I just wanted to add that in there as a little bit more proof of the solar energies and how they're ramping up. Besides that, I've been hearing they've been talking about reverse engineered technology coming to the surface, cover-ups coming to the surface. Keep an eye out for hints and slow drip disclosures or new discoveries. It is a process. This kind of has to be rolled out slowly, like with the a lot of the super soldier stuff coming in, the gene splicing, genetic manipulation coming to the surface, and also quantum entanglement. Science is starting to talk about these things. They released, I can't remember where it was, but you could probably look it up. There was an article released in some science thing I saw online about how they're talking about teleporting the first person. So like things like that. And then important portals and nodes that need to be worked on around the planet and in the United States. Specifically, I was getting new portal systems activating in the Rocky and Smoky mountains, Appalachian Mountains. So grid workers and light workers, if you're in those areas, just set intentions, do meditation, do clearing work, because I think a lot of these nefarious portal systems are being shut down. But there's a little bit of a tug of war going on over land is what I've been picking up on in some of the messaging I'm getting. Sending love and light, that is how we win. Transcending duality. Love always wins. It's another message. And triggers coming to the surface to be worked out and resolved. Be aware of your own projections coming out and practice self-reflection. That's what's going to be happening with these solar energies. And as the frequency of the planet raises, it's going to push all the shadows out to be dealt with. One of the other things that's been coming up is, I heard recently, they've told me recently, is revelations of Jesus's life incoming. They use the word clandestine, which means kept secret or done secretly. So we may have some big disclosure or discoveries about Jesus is what they're saying. And I wonder if this has to do with the new Pope too. That feels very timely. And then revelations of Atlantis, lost wisdom, lost technology and history, as well as underground dumps being cleared out, trafficking, rings.
Just on the new Pope, I just did a commentary just a week ago. I kind of got the sense that this new Pope, because they chose an American, was a nod by the Vatican that the White Hats, the Earth Alliance, was winning in the struggle against the deep state. And so they chose an American Pope because he would be the one that would negotiate with the White Hats and the Earth Alliance the new world, or this kind of this new world that we're going to get into, and the Vatican will play a role in the disclosure of extraterrestrial life. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, that's actually some messages that I got from the Federation like a few years ago. I think 2023, I put that video up. They were talking about, specifically talking about the Pope, which is interesting because that was 2 years ago. The Pope and just messages from the future. So this was about a future event. The Pope helping to bridge spirituality and science and bring in some of these disclosures. And now I felt they were talking about this one is what I feel. The Alliance told me whenever I tapped into that, they showed me him and they said, the passing of the old one and then this new one was a huge marker and transition of the golden age, the closing of one chapter and beginning of a new. And they said the Vatican has fallen. This new Pope will do good. He is different. They said he is not the same breed, is the word that they used. So I wonder if they meant the old Pope was not human, or this Pope, it kind of makes you think, but that's the word. They said he's not cut from the same cloth. He's different, and he's even genetically different, it sounds like.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I know you do some work with DNA activation on your website. You do DNA activation kits. So yeah, tell us, what's all that about?
Yeah, so that is, and I write extensively about that in my first book, Contact. That is something that the Andromedans and my star family and the Galactics started teaching me very early on, was about DNA and activating your DNA and how we have all of this untapped potential. We're using like 5% of our brains apparently, and about, they would say that about 5 to 7% of our DNA was the only real DNA. Like 95 to 97% is junk DNA, when really we can activate its multidimensional DNA. We can access this wisdom, develop gifts and abilities. We can heal ourselves. We can heal others as we activate these dormant gifts and this dormant DNA. So that was life-changing for me. I went through a whole basically DNA activation program with these beings. I would do sessions with them. I would meditate literally from morning until night, barely taking a break to eat for months. I did that, focusing on DNA activation. And that helped develop gifts in me where I can help others activate their DNA. So I do kind of these like guided meditations with my singing bowls. And I call in the galactics and assist with helping people activate their DNA. We focus on repairing, healing, and activating dormant DNA. So you can have incredible experiences from that. And they said, back then they told me that's basically like the number one key. DNA activation and repair and healing, because we carry a lot of trauma within the cells of our body as well, from past lifetimes, but also generational trauma. So healing that. And the heart, that's the main thing. Opening your heart, activating your DNA, and then kind of everything else starts to fall in line. That's summarizing it lightly, but those are two major points.
Yeah, I think those are very, very important points, actually. I mean, connecting with the heart center and clearing your DNA and healing. I mean, those are all very important. And I think that's essential for preparing for what's coming. And I think these kind of like solar flash events and the awakening and disclosure, big things are coming for those that especially haven't done any preparation. So if people want to contact you or do one of these DNA activations with you, where do they go?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website is lilynovacontact.com. And I do have I have a workshop on how to activate your DNA that's available now. And it has a 1-hour DNA activation at the end. So I teach you the protocols to assist you with that, and then do a guided one for you. And you can listen to that for however many times you'd like. You have lifetime access. And then I have a more extensive DNA activation kit where it's a whole program. It's like a 6-week plus transformational program with 9 different sessions. And it's kind of like it's a starseed boot camp. It'll prepare you. It will help heal you. It will help you raise your frequency, tap into your gifts and abilities. Really, the possibilities are endless. So you can find that on lilynovacontact.com. And I'm also very active on YouTube, where I would do weekly updates. I was out of town for a bit, but usually Sundays I'll go live and share alliance updates and kind of psychic readings and stuff like that. And my YouTube is Lily Nova Starseed.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Lily, for sharing your fascinating information and setting the record straight on a few claims out there. So it's been wonderful having you back, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to catch up.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.